I remember super early on in my career when I was not even a cinematographer, I was like a second AC. I think it was like my first or second day, like ever on a production on set in general. The DP asked me to get a box of f stops. I'm sure if you're in the industry, you know where this is going. I I ran around for like 10, 15 minutes trying to ask everybody, like, hey, I've been asked about a box of f stops. Like, do you know where to get them? Is there like, is Film Tools open? Like, what can we do to make this happen? Everybody was like in on this joke, and nobody was helping me out for like 10 to 15 minutes. And then the DP pulls me aside and is like, nah, I was just with you. Like, that's a camera thing. I didn't think you would go to this length to try and find a box of f stops. But I was just busting your balls. Like, you're fine. We don't need to do that. And then later on, I found out like, oh, he's just obviously learning the camera. I know what f stops are now, but um, yeah, that was like a very early on industry experience that I had. Good morning, welcome back to the ALG show. Today we're going to be talking with Jonathan Chan, a first assistant camera. In this conversation, we get into the philosophies and lessons he carries with him throughout his work as a first AC, as well as his previous experiences with working at a rental house and his experiences with previous mentors in his career. We actually recently worked together on a few projects, a passion project of mine that you'll know more information about hopefully soon, and a commercial. Um, Overall, I think he's a great camera assistant, and I've only really gotten to know him in the last year, and I think he's someone I definitely value, and I love that I get to have him in my corner, especially on production days. It's just he's so reliable, he's so efficient, and he's incredible to work with. And but yeah, let's get into the conversation.
Work's been interesting. It's been slower start, kind of like always. The cool thing about it, I feel like, is this is the third year I've been at a rental house,
Okay.
so I'm definitely seeing the pattern of, yeah, beginning of the year is slow, like for everybody. Even like last year, it was, I think I just had like one job in January, two jobs February, and then March is where it really picked up. Just like for me personally, like on the side for
Mm-hmm.
camera gigs,
Yeah.
and then also like just everybody else in the world, like for rentals.
I think January in general like is always like a slow month. Every year that like I've freelanced, it's always been a slow month.
Yeah.
And like everybody I've talked to, it's like January is kind of like a slow, like kind of like work. I feel like starts to slow off, maybe like October ish, and then as like it gets into
Yeah,
like
cause
the
even like
holidays.
yeah, cause even for like Thanksgiving, November will kind of start dying also,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then by the time December rolls around, everybody's kind of like, we only got a month,
Yeah,
like
we
it's
only got a
fine,
month. We'll
guys.
push it to the new year. Is always like the email I get. We'll touch base in January.
Yeah, for real. That's how it really be. But even like I feel like cause like last year with the strikes and everything, it was really interesting to see there was definitely that slow part in the middle of the year.
Oh
But I feel
yeah.
like definitely during like October into November and December, there's a few jobs that were like really pushing to get like shot before the end of the year.
Oh, okay. I
Um,
guess it's just playing catch up.
yeah, definitely. Cause it's like even like people that I've talked to, like in the other worlds of like that are union and stuff, they're like, yeah, I mean, people have just kind of been sitting on their hands, like they're like production just stopped, or there's already things that were written from like before then, and it's just like
Yeah.
even like I just it wasn't that long ago to think about, but like COVID and then strikes, and it's just kind of like a weird, it's just been a weird time.
Yeah, definitely. So you said you worked at a rental house. Like what got you into that? Was that just you wanting to kind of get into the industry some way? Was that for you like some consistent revenue? What was like what got you into the rental house?
To be honest, a bit of both. For sure, I'd have to mention my mentor from LACC, because I remember towards the end of my year, going back to 2020,
Yeah.
2020 shut everything down. So I had one semester remote. And in that semester was my final semester, and I had to do a project, right? So they're
Yeah.
in production.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was working at a restaurant, And so I was like, I'm between of I've been at this restaurant for 3 years. I'm really into this film stuff. I gotta kind of make a jump.
Yeah.
So I left the restaurant. I just focused on producing and directing this thing. And then after that, it was just kind of like, all right, well, I don't have anything lined up. So I kind of reached out to my mentor who was working at this camera shop at the time. And I had asked him, like, hey, man, if there's any work, like, at all, like, feel free to hit me up or just, like, anything. Like, I'd be, like, extremely grateful. And he's
Yeah.
the one who taught me the most about cameras. Even,
Yeah.
like, in school, just always kind of looked out for me. And so he took a chance on me and it worked out. He's the first person to be like, hey, you want to help out on this project? And I was like, all right, cool. What do you need? He's like, all right, you're gonna be first AC. And I'm like, all right, cool. What's that? And
What do I do here?
pretty much. And I just got lucky, to be honest. It was one of those things where, just take a chance and, you never know if you're going to like it. And I've just always stuck to cameras.
Yeah. So you mentioned like producing, directing. Was that like, did you go to film school like in college, or like was that
Yeah.
was
So
something you were doing on the side, like while majoring in something else?
no, I went to, I would say film school. Yeah. I went to LACC.
Mm-hmm.
So community college, but they had
Yeah.
a film program. I remember I was doing something else before that didn't really line up with what I wanted to do. So
Yeah.
I ended up dropping that. And sure enough, I was in the middle of a move, and like one of my older brothers had, I think like a catalog from LACC or something like that.
Mm.
Because I think I found like one as we're moving, and I was like, oh, this is kind of sick. They have like a film program.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the classes. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, cool, cool. And then I meet up like with a buddy, like on the bus, like randomly, the next day, and I was like, oh, dude, I used to like be really what's it called? Like envious a little bit because he took like these screenwriting classes. He was like acting,
Yeah.
and these are things that I kind of wanted to do in like high school, but I
Yeah.
just never pushed myself to do it.
Like it looked interesting, and you're like, I gotta try this.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then also like I've always liked the movies. Like growing up as a kid, we would just always go to the movies, and it's just like I always loved seeing like behind the scenes stuff, how shots are done.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where like having this conversation with him, he was like, "Oh, dude, you should like definitely check it out. Like they have such a great program."
Mm.
And it was like one of those things where like I don't know, happy accidents or like the stars align,
Yeah.
however you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? I think because then it's at the end of the day, it's like if I have these regrets from high school, I don't want to have more regrets on something that I'm not even gonna take a chance on.
Yeah.
So I was like, nah, screw it. I'll just go for it. And I've stuck with it. Like luckily, I'm really grateful that I met a lot of cool people, and it just kind of worked out, and I haven't had any regrets
Oh,
since
nice.
in
Nice.
work choice. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in like this film program in my high school. It was like part of like their it was like a part of their magnet program. It was like like you were in the program from like your sophomore year of high school to like your senior year.
It's like a separate program, like within school. Kind
Yeah,
of?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah. It's like a it would replace like your extracurricular
Oh.
kind of. So like how like if you were like an athlete in high school, you'd have like your
Your PE last
your
period. Kind of
PE
thing.
last period
Yeah.
kind of thing. But it was kind of different based on your schedule and based on like what tier of the program you were in. So I think like my sophomore year, it was like third period, I think it was. My junior year was first period. And then my senior year was fifth. So like right after lunch, I just like got into it. And that was like the thing that was like, oh shit, I could like do this. Like this could be an interesting thing. But it wasn't even until like maybe halfway through senior year where I was like, oh yeah, this could be something I could take more serious.
This is a serious
You
thing.
know, I always thought like, oh, it's this fun thing because I don't know. Before that, like I was just gonna go to like a community college and just like figure this out, like whatever, you know. But then I discovered this program. I'm like, oh, this could be like an actual like career. Like it's kind of feasible. But like in terms of like college, like I went to CSUN for a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then like I had to choose between either like I do a show for Revolt or
Finish your program.
I do an essay. The thing was I wasn't even in the film program either.
Oh really?
Because it was how do you call it, like a impacted major.
Oh.
So like your GPA needed to be like a certain
Oh.
GPA, and my grades were in high school. So like
Yeah. No, I mean.
so like I couldn't make it, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go in later. But then I kind of decided like, oh, I'm gonna maybe take some classes in like marketing, because it's like I know I'm gonna have to.
That's smart. Yeah.
Because I know I'm gonna have to like market myself like in some capacity, like if I'm gonna be freelancing.
Yeah, that's pretty true. Especially just like as we get into it too, like, even like networking, like you said, marketing yourself and then just kind of keeping those connections.
Yeah.
It's a good skill to have.
Yeah.
Like, At least for me too. Like that's why I did community college, because I was kind of like, I don't want to be too committed to like a 4 year program, and it's just like, again, like my grades were fine in high school. They're pretty good, but like I had a semester off in between before I actually like took film serious.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I did my 2 years. I was like, I could transfer, and like I luckily like I had met a lot of people who went through transfer programs. So, like again, you met people who like were in CSUN.
Yeah.
There's like NIFA shoots a lot. You always hear
Mm-hmm.
like different stories,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just kind of
Yeah.
like some of the stories that I've heard. I'm just like, I'm like, I already have a pretty good background, and I was like, I got lucky working at a shop, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, everybody's journey is always gonna be different,
Yeah.
and it's like if you're able to surround yourself with like good people, it doesn't matter really where. I feel like if you're with good people and you guys take care of each other, that's gonna be valuable no matter what. Like especially I feel like for you, if you did that in high school, like dude, I get mad at myself that I didn't have that. So like if you started lower, like yeah, everyone starts different, but it's just like sometimes it just works out unbeknownst to you. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. You kind of like, I don't know. It kind of finds you, like it chooses you in a
Right.
sense, because like you kind of, not that you have to like earn it, but you have to like trust that like it's gonna work out.
Yeah,
And then like
no.
when you fully like commit yourself to saying like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna try and like fully make this work. You know,
Hmm.
because before, if you're like half foot in, half foot out, it's like wishy washy. Because I was like that for a minute. I was like, is
Hmm.
this gonna work? I don't know. And like, I was still like super hesitant to like try and work at all. Like besides like freelance, besides like part time, like I was hesitant before. And then like it took a few people who like consistently hired me that I was like, okay, yeah, I should probably like
Keep up with it. Keep
lean
doing it.
into this a
Yeah.
little bit more. But even like, I think having it in school is nice because you build this like community around you.
Right. It's
I,
a network. I feel like school is great because it's like it's the network of people who are interested in the same thing as you are.
yeah, yeah, all like common goal
Yeah.
sort of thing. And I mean, of the people that were like in that program, a lot of us, I think there was like maybe 40 of us. I think I maybe speak to like 6 or 7 of us, and
Mm.
of those 7, even less of them are working in the film industry. So
Mm.
like the community kind of dwindles a little bit.
That's
But
true. I mean, it depends with like yeah. I guess that's the difference between like I guess certain level or like tiers of school sometimes.
some community is better than no community, I think.
That is 100% true. Because at the end of the day too, like I think professors also are like a really good inspiration. I don't
Yeah.
know like for you like is there anybody that kind of like professor wise or that
Professor wise, no, but like
no.
my high school film teacher, like the guy who ran the
Mm.
program, that fool was like tough love. Like I was
Really?
talking about it before with someone who was like in the program, and it's just like tough love. Like it's,
How do you respond to that? Like what was it like for you?
I
If you don't
felt
mind me asking.
I felt like being like pushed around a little bit, low
Mm.
key. Like um, but I think like in hindsight, like I understand where he was coming from.
He only did it because he cared, kind of.
Yeah, and like I think if I was treated kind of any other way, I don't think I would have pursued it. I think.
You wouldn't have learned the same way,
I
kind of
think
thing.
maybe like I think maybe ego would have been like an issue. Maybe I don't know.
Mm.
Like I think he was very helpful in terms of like being realistic with things that I wanted to achieve. Not that he was like trying to put me down or anything, but like he was like, hey, like if you're gonna try to do this, like understand the weight of the situation,
Yeah.
type thing. You know,
Yeah. He's just speaking facts at the end of the
yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think like in the moment, like I was definitely having like I think more of a harder time than like I should have. I think because it was like, damn, like I gotta be, I'm doing something wrong. That was my thought. I'm like, I'm doing something
Oh.
wrong. Like I gotta do this, do that. Like maybe try something different. I don't know, but I don't know. Again, like we were saying before, like it's like you gotta figure that out on your own. Like it's like I kind of saw it and I was like, okay, what is he actually like trying to tell me? I don't think he's trying to be a dick. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let me see it through. Let me try to understand. Like, because it also helped that like I was with people who were like, I got a homie of mine, the homie Ricardo Vasquez. He's also been on the show.
Oh.
He was kind of a friend of mine that I had always, we've been friends for years, and he was always like a film knack. Like he had a knack for it. Not
Mm.
necessarily like the craft of it, but like the art of it. He always like watched movies and like was one of the first people in my life to see that, like, okay, this is like a beautiful art form. And like he directed a few projects that were like a part of that curriculum, and I DP'd them. And that was like one of the first like relationships where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is something I should take more seriously. And in turn, because of that high school teacher too, it was like, okay, yeah, I gotta like push for this in some capacity. Yeah, at the very least to do okay in this class.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I mean, did you have that sort of thing? I mean, you had the college experience. Like, was that like,
Yeah, definitely.
you know?
I feel like you said, like you need those certain professors. I feel like even though they might, I don't know, at times maybe seem like a hard ass or or come off as mean. I feel
Yeah.
like at least for me, I took pretty well of that. I feel like he lit a fire under my ass, to be honest.
Mm.
Like yeah, he was just this older guy from New York. He did a lot of years gaffing.
Yeah.
I think one of the like cooler facts, like especially when you're with a bunch of these different professors at different levels, there's definitely a lot of like indie filmmakers, but this guy was more like traditional union, gaffing in New York. I think like one of the cool facts that I found out was I think he was an electric on like the original Spider-Man.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's just one of those like things you hear like when you're in film school and you love movies and like our age group, bro, we love Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, dude,
Yeah.
this professor worked on Spider-Man.
Everybody loves Spider-Man.
Exactly, and it's just like,
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where like, oh no, there's it's hope, or just kind of like, oh, it's kind of cool. And then also like during like one of the lectures, a lot of the times we would appreciate about him, he'd always share like some stories of just like, yeah, just being in the union, or just like the toughness of it, or just different times, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I can only imagine like how some jobs are. Just like a little side thing was like, I guess he met the gaffer for the Pirates of the Caribbean at like some networking thing,
No way.
and he got like starstruck in the sense of like, what were your setups?
I deeply respect your work. Please.
Yeah, dude, because like to
Yeah.
like Pirates of the Caribbean, I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah.
But
That's sick.
but yeah, no, that guy was really cool just because the program that I was in was very like broad, so they taught you kind of everything.
Yeah.
They gave you a cool like introduction courses. They had a few photography, cinematography, editing, writing. But this one professor was in charge of the cinematography program.
Yeah.
So he had like an intro class that was very like book work, which was kind of tough, but I feel like it worked out because he really fed you a lot of useful information to kind of weed out who really wants to continue the program. Because then after that, he actually had a grip and electric class. So he used to have like the classes together, and he would teach this class, and it was always, and these classes were interesting because I don't know how it was for you, but for us it was always like one day out of the week, but the classes were like 3 to 4 hours long. Yeah, so it was really interesting because there was times where like I would just be in school the whole day. If it didn't work, I'd just be at school the whole day because like these classes just ran so long.
Yeah.
And like the way it was laid out was you took the cinematography class, so you kind of have good knowledge, lighting, basic stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then you had
Yeah.
a grip class. So like literally the first day, like we took a day to just learn C stands,
Oh wow.
kind of thing. So he really you got really hands on with this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we did I did the grip class. I did the electric class. I did no, actually no. I don't think I did the electric class. I think that's what it was. I took this thing backwards, which I regret looking back at it now, because it's like, so it's intro to cinematography, grip,
Mhm.
electric, and then advanced cinematography. And advanced cinematography was basically you come into class and there's a call sheet on the door, and basically it's like, we're gonna practice a setup. So like there's a cool day where it's like, okay, we have dolly day.
Oh.
He would bring,
Okay.
because this guy was just a kind of a bigger industry guy, so he knew all of these connections. Like we would had Reds in class,
Mhm.
Aries, because they were all favorites, just because he's just he's been hustling for so long out here. He has all these connections.
You could pull a favor like
He
that.
could pull a favor like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had a lot of
Yeah.
weight, and so I feel like when you have like that kind of guy teaching you, I really wanted to absorb as much as I could, and it's
Yeah.
like, even though at times he might have been harsh, for me it's like I wouldn't have wanted to learn any other way, because that's at the end of the day how he learned.
Yeah.
And it's but it's interesting too, even like as I get older, it's like, because I was trained in that way, that's how I conducted myself work wise for a lot of years.
Mhm.
And it's not until I feel like post COVID we see a shift in the workforce of like, I used to work with a lot of older guys.
Yeah.
I feel like post COVID I finally started to kind of work with people my age.
I feel the same way. Like pre-COVID, it was like I was usually the youngest one on set, and
Yeah.
then post-COVID, everybody's kind of around the same age. There's a few older, a few younger. I think yeah, just like crews are getting younger and like the education is I guess a little bit more like accessible.
That
Cause
too.
even like in school, like you had this guy who was like super connected and was willing to kind of teach you all these different things. For me, it was a little different. It wasn't like a 4 or 5 hour class because it was high school.
Uh-huh.
But it went because it was 3 years. So like the first year was like basics,
Hmm.
and then like rule of thirds, like what is a C stand, like sort of thing. Second year was a little bit more like you got to kind of discover a little bit more. Like we did a few shorts, we did kind of some different kind of projects, more crew based,
Hmm.
and then the last year was more advanced, where you got to like apply yourself in a practical sense, or like we did a lot of solo projects like that last year, which I
Oh,
thought was interesting. But in hindsight, it's like, okay, you got to figure out like your identity a little bit
that's true. Because I
as
feel
like
like,
a creative person.
yeah, I feel like
Yeah,
especially as a creative, like you need that space to like, it's not, it might sound kind of scary, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like you can only do so much. Also, I think as a teacher, also like
yeah,
high school, it's kind of like that's part of high school too. You got to find your identity. So to be able to like, I think give you that like year of like, all right, figure it out. Because at the end of the
yeah.
day, like after high school, that's what you got to do. You have to
You
figure
gotta
out a lot of
figure it out.
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely pushed for like further education.
Hmm.
Like he got into the professor, like he got into San Francisco State, or like that's where he went, I believe. And I got into San Francisco State.
Hmm.
I didn't go because in my mind I was like,
Why not?
I can't pay for this.
Oh,
I can't pay for this, and also like if I'm trying to actually work, I don't think it makes sense to leave LA.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
we're in a good spot.
Like I think if I were to go there, I think I might have learned quite a bit. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to dismiss like education at all. I'm learning all the time.
Hmm.
So that's like why I do this podcast partially, because like I learn from other people's experience.
Right.
But I think like I was able to take like a little bit more freelance work, and that like kind of allowed me to kind of like not only like learn different like theory and stuff, but also like get like practical like hands-on
Yeah, I
experience.
feel like it's one of those things like you can't really. There's certain things you just can't learn until you actually do it.
Yeah.
Especially like working on set, just like in any position. I feel
Yeah,
like.
it's like driving, bro. Like you can read it.
Hmm.
You can read every textbook on driving. You could read Formula One textbooks, but if you've never driven a car, you're never
Right.
gonna perform even half as well as half of those drivers. You know what I mean? So it definitely like was helpful for me at least to like be doing more work, even if I wasn't like studying filmmaking in a traditional context. Like I think I was still learning from like older gaffers. Like I had this
Hmm.
tendency to work with like older gaffers, like they were in like their 50s. um I appreciated that they trusted me on a project, so that sort of
Right.
thing, you know. I would learn from those people, and like I had a few people that would kind of like I would pick their brains on, and not like in like a mentor mentee type context. I don't think I've really properly had a
Had a.
mentor. But I think like if I can pick anybody's brain, regardless of their age, like I think that'll be somebody that I learned from more so than like I guess that traditional mentor mentee relationship.
Hmm.
But I could be wrong because like I've
Would you?
never had that
What's
sort of
something that you feel
relationship.
like you took away from that guy that you're talking about? Like in terms of just like lighting, or just the way he carried himself on set, or.
I think it was a lot of like it was like a mix of things, right?
Hmm.
Because a lot of the way that this guy lit was very like tungsten, like very traditional.
Hmm.
um, which I think for me it was important to learn the traditional way of doing things before I like get into like trying to find my unorthodox like answer to lighting. Um, so I think it was helpful like foundationally, like it set me up, and also just like the importance of like the way like mannerisms, like the importance of like the way that you carry yourself, and kind of
Yeah.
understanding the weight of the responsibility that is like being a department head.
Oh yeah, especially
because
as a gaffer.
because
Yeah.
there's a lot of like gaffer, DP, whomever. Like I think people tend to be like excited about the role. Yes, you should, because
Yeah.
it's cool. It's sick as
But then
but
also, especially as a department and as gaffing, if you're lighting with tungsten, I'm just thinking like safety wise.
yeah,
You have
that
to,
too.
dude.
Like if I'm I say this like every production, but it's like I'm not gonna ask somebody to do some that like I'm not gonna do myself,
Right.
right? And I'm not gonna, safety is like a huge thing, and also like just like practices and mannerisms and like understanding that like yes, this is like an incredibly creative and cool job that we get to do, but also understanding that like we're on a time crunch. We got to get this amount of shots in the
Yeah.
12-hour day or the 8-hour day or whatever it is. Um, Understanding that I think was like equally important that I learned from like just people in general, and like I kind of learned from everybody, even like camera assistants that I've worked with. Like I will take a chance on like a on somebody if I feel like I can learn from them, or like if I feel like they have it in them to do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I feel
Because
like
I just feel like I would have killed for that opportunity. You know?
because I
Yeah.
think that was the one thing that I learned in like in film school. We had a sound class.
Yeah, yeah,
Dude,
yeah.
sound was interesting.
Sound is an interesting medium.
Sound is an interesting realm. Also, like that professor, he was like this older cat, like
Yeah, yeah,
older guy. Arnie. Ah, shout out to Arnie. Um, he was just I don't know. It's just the way he carried himself. I think it's one of those things where, like when you're at the end of the like yeah, he's just like, oh, I worked so many years. I'm at the end of my career. He's like why would I be angry? Why would I be upset? It's like there's two different worlds. Like the cinematography professor, he gath and he DP'd a lot of years,
yeah,
and I don't know, like stigmas of like cinematographers. A lot of people kind of become assholes over the
yeah,
years and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So there's always that kind of like stigma with this professor. But then the other side was like Arnie. He's like, yeah, I'm a retired. So I just come in to work 1 day a week, pick up my check. Life is good.
I'm chilling.
Yeah, dude, she's
I'm
just hanging, she's
chilling.
chilling real hard.
Talking about work. So that professor, he got you the rental house gig.
No. So the thing was, in the what class was this? Oh no, it was the first cinematography class. He had two TAs.
Yeah,
So those two guys, I think, had already had like all of their classes done,
yeah.
but they're just helping out for the rest of their semester, whatever they need to go on wherever
Mm-hmm.
they're at.
Yeah,
And it was just one of those things where same thing. I think I was just the youngest in that class because it was community college, so there's a lot of people who would just kind of come in and say, oh yeah, I got my degree in this, and I just kind of want to try this because I never had the opportunity before.
yeah,
And I get it. People are on different roads of life,
yeah,
different,
yeah,
everyone's got their own journey.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And for me to come in, it was honestly a little intimidating. And it wasn't until I met his TAs, they were a little older than me. And I've always kind of looked up to them in the way of like, they just seem like cool dudes. And I would just kind of bother them during class. I'm like, hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah,
Just kind of like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I was like, yeah, this guy's messing up. We're just like talking about other people in the class.
yeah,
Just,
yeah,
just a little small talk. And I think they just took a liking to me. So one of his TAs, PK. Oh, this guy's insane. So he's a first AC from Thailand. So he actually like worked a bunch of years in Thailand before coming to the States.
Ah,
And
okay.
he'd always tell me about like how he was trained and everything. Like later down the road, those two guys ended up going to this rental house. And it was until after I finished my semester, I just kind of like reached out to them like, hey guys, just hope you're doing well. I'm finishing up my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I asked them for help on the project. They're busy. I'm like, no worries. I'm, hey man, if you guys ever need any hands with the shop, like, I I would love more than anything to kind of like kick it with you guys again and just kind of hang out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
And
wasn't even like you were asking for work. It was just like you wanted to be with the homies again,
pretty much,
sort of
because I think
thing.
even for my final project, I rented some stuff out from them, and they had just moved
Mm.
to the new location in Hawthorne. So I remember it was one of those things where it's like part of as you're coming into the world, you want to maintain those relationships that are first of all that are really meaningful, but then also like the ones that I feel like can kind of get you ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they were just really like nice dudes, and I remember during the return, it's like I was the director slash producer, but early on you always wear many hats, and it's like
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm gonna be part of all these pickups. I'm gonna be part of all these drop offs, and so I want to go drop them off and say like, hey, thank you for helping us out on this,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
even I think I met the boss that day too, and I said like, if there's anything you guys need help with, like I'd be more than excited to. Like I just quit my job, so
trying to learn.
I'm ready to learn. I'm
Yeah,
ready to
yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah,
Whatever comes by. And so those guys really got me that job. And because I went through the same training that they went through with that one specific professor,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel like they gained a little more trust with them because it's like, no, this guy's smart. He went through the same program. Like even our professor likes this guy. Like I feel like he's a trustworthy candidate to bring in to work with us, kind of thing.
Yeah. So were you You weren't a prep tech at that point. You were just doing deliveries, like pick up, drop off.
Um,
Like if you when you were at this rental house.
at this one, to be honest, I think the first things that it made me kind of do was more like inventory stuff.
Okay.
So it's funny because I think they got like new barcodes. I don't know, just some random like new stuff. So making like all the cases look pretty, part of presentation. Want to
Yeah,
look
yeah, yeah,
professional.
yeah,
And also, I think they just changed systems. So it's like kind of like transferring from one system to another.
yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
kind of got into the nitty gritty of that, just because like it was also slow at the time that they hired me. So this was like, I think again in the beginning of the year. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I think I started in January.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I started January 2021 at this shop, and again it just was slow. There wasn't much to do, so it's kind of like, well, yeah, just kind of do inventory, clean things up, and then just being in the gear room. Oh my god, dude, it's like the best. It's like a kid in the candy store. Like fresh out of film school, you're seeing so many things that you've never even seen before in your life, and you're
Yeah.
just like so many questions. I'm trying to absorb everything, especially like this. My buddy PK, it's just like he knows so much, and it's like I just ask him questions after questions, and I feel like he saw the level of excitement that I had to learn, and I feel like he really took me under his wing because of that. And he's like, no, this guy, he wants to learn, so I want to make sure I teach him the right way.
Yeah.
Especially coming from Thailand, he would always tell me, he's like, oh, dude, we train like military over there.
Yeah.
He's like, yep, C-stand, break it down on your shoulder, run back and forth, run back and forth. He's like, when I first got here, they would say, why are you running? And I learned like, oh yeah, we don't have to run here. And it's just like different worlds, like one of the funny little things, he would say like pointing, like if you're pointing at something, oh, pass me this, pass me that.
Yeah.
That's seen as very, very rude over there.
Yeah.
So he wasn't able to do that. So when he's here, he's like, oh, I love that you can point with anything. He's like, look, I just point with my foot, like, hey, pass me that case. It's like the little things, like just how he works. And he just carried himself very, very professionally. Like he kind of like, I don't know. I think it's also like a minority kind of mentality, especially when we're here. It's like we're easily replaceable
Yeah.
when it comes to work.
Yeah.
So it's always like, no, heads down, stay in your lane, kind of like do the job that you're there to do, and make sure. I guess this is kind of what I picked up. Don't make your problem anybody else's problem, kind of thing.
Mm.
Because if no, I feel like also early on there's some good and bad to this. I feel like if no one notices you on set, that means you're doing a good job.
That's how I feel. Like
Yeah.
if I have a especially when I'm DPing, like if I have a if I don't have any issues, I will probably hire you again.
Mm.
That is the core of like what makes a really solid camera assistant, when you're unnoticeable,
Yeah.
in the sense that like things are being taken care of, and that every responsibility is being understood, and like and even like when I was like a first AC, like that was kind of the philosophy that I was like kind of taught to kind of go into, because at the end of the day, like at least for the productions that I was on, like the main focus was like the talent of like the scene, especially like if I was like when I was first seeing, I did a lot of like narrative stuff, and the scenes were like, there was definitely certain scenes that like I shot where they were like heavily emotional scenes, and all of the like talent needed their entire focus and then some. So it was important for everybody to be as precise and like focused, and like so we can give them this space to like perform and do their thing. And if we had to run through like several takes because focus was off, like odds are, like even what you're saying about like being replaceable, it's like odds are I don't think I'm gonna be on the next job.
Yeah, that's like, especially like coming up. Like, I mean, my
Yeah.
professor would say a lot. He's like, it's like you gotta remember, like it's a small town. He would always, that's one of the things he'd always say.
Yeah.
It's like, especially in this town, like everybody knows everybody. There's a story of like you dropping a lens, like
Yeah.
God forbid, like it's gonna go around. People aren't gonna trust you and want to hire you.
Yeah.
Even towards like the end of the semester, one of the things that he said, he's like, I don't even really need to say anything to you guys that you don't already know, but if I took a vote in this classroom and said, who would you want to work with? I guarantee you the people that aren't going to get vote for who you want to work with is going to be the same across the board.
Yeah.
And he kind of silenced the room like that. And we're just like, yeah, there's some people who want to be here, who want to take it serious. And there's other people that, granted, it is a really cool job.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it is work.
Yeah. So that's how you like went into the rental house, I figure. Like it's kind of the same thing.
I think it was a little different environment just because, again, going to community college, there's a lot of older guys.
Yeah.
So, like, being surrounded by, I guess, a few younger guys, or at least, like, they weren't too much older than me. I really felt like they were like my brothers. I think they're like the same age as my older brothers.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I can kind of play like the little brother of like, oh, just kind of like float around, be a little annoying, but at the same time, try to help out as much as possible.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's like I just kind of want to, at the end of the day too, like, sometimes it's not that serious, crack a few jokes, kind of bring morale up,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which I feel like we had a really good thing going there. It was fun. There's a lot of fun moments. Because also on that shop that the owner of the shop was a DP and a Steadicam op.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the clientele were a lot of his buddies, and so I kind of just saw, yeah, a lot of people, they take care of each other. They tend to work with the same people over and over again. And some of these other productions that he would end up getting, they just needed guys on set, and since
Yeah.
they knew a lot of the guys in the shop already worked on set, they would bring us along. So like a lot of my first gigs were through the shop, and again going back to like being able to be blessed to have that job and like those network of people who knew other people, and like the amount of work that I got in that first year was great. First time working on set, and especially that I had a mentor, it kind of I felt like I had a lot of like help and a lot of support from these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like and I feel like as I get older too, it's like I remember a lot of those moments and a lot of those stories, and it's just like I want to be able to make it easy anybody else coming up too, especially as you get older in this industry. It's like I've been doing this for 5 years, and like how we said, we used to be the youngest on set.
Yeah.
I'm no longer the youngest on set anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then sometimes even then, like this end of the last year, I was working on a feature for an action movie, dude.
Oh, okay.
First time I ever did an action movie, and it was just like it's an action movie within itself working on set. Cause you forget, action movies are shot, with a cajillion cuts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so much coverage that I completely forget. Cause also I don't really do a lot of narrative work.
Oh, okay.
I've done just like pretty much everything else, everything else in the world, and just very little narrative work.
Yeah.
So going back to narrative is like remembering, oh, coverage, coverage, start wide, push in
Yeah.
as we
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
But then also it was like one of those jobs where I was second AC, and I hadn't been second AC in like 2 years because I had just been
Mm-hmm.
firsting for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm second ACing for the first time with 2 Alexa 35s,
Sick.
and I'm the only second AC.
Sick.
And we're doing an action movie.
Sick.
And so it was literally to this day, I would say is the hardest job I've done,
Wow.
because it was just, when you hop on set also, because I was only there for like a few days, because I was covering for another friend who gave
Oh,
me the job.
you were a day player.
Yeah, I was day playing, so I wasn't
Okay.
even like with the whole production, and we're like in the middle of nowhere. This is like sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
In just pushing cards, heavy ass stuff, and I'm just running between both first ACs on A and B cam, and it's like adjusting to 2 different styles of ACing, and it's just like I forget too, like there's a stigma too of first ACs. I feel like a lot of people might think they're just very bitter or just very detail oriented, and I get that too, because everything needs to be very precise and specific when it comes to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just one of those things where I remember too, it's like, oh yeah, I've had like bad experiences with AC, but they were great. They were like union people, and they reminded me of, like, again, not doing narrative for so long. Oh no, like this is the job.
Yeah.
This is the hustle and bustle that people will kill to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm covering a good friend of mine, and it's like, no, I have to come to work. I have to step up anytime that I can. And it's just like, even though it was like really hard, it wasn't until like towards the end of it, like we're wrapping up, like, hey, just want to say like thank you for coming on and helping us out. I know it's tricky to adjust learning one style to the other style, and we're asking you to do 2 separate things at the same time.
Yeah.
We have like the ear tags and the surveillance. And the funniest thing about this job, looking back at it, because it was a cool job, it was an action movie. I was like, you know what, I can't complain. We got it over with. But we had surveillances, right, for camera department.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then they had the ear tags for A and B cam, for
Mm-hmm.
DP and the B cam up.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm just getting like commands on my walkie, and I'm like trying to do them. Meanwhile, on the other side of my ear, it's just like, hey, you see that bird over there? Yeah, that's some nice B-roll. It's like, yeah, we could grab him going there. There's deers around. It's like, oh, dude, get some more deer shots. And then meanwhile, I was like, we need a black battery. We're swiping to this.
Just everybody just yelling at you, and then the most tame conversation.
Yeah, no, it really was. It was the best of both. Because at the same time, it just reminds me of like other, like at the end of the day too, it's like these are people that have worked with each other like definitely before in the past. So it's like being able to be a part of that still is still really cool to see, because it's like, even though there can be some nitty gritty parts of the job,
Yeah.
it's a job, but the fact that there's still 2 other guys that are like taking it that calm, it helps. It's a nice healthy balance, I think.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, at least for me, when I'm like DPing a project, especially, I felt the same way like as a first, but I feel like maintaining composure is like such a huge part of the process, because like the moment that you're stressed or the moment that you're kind of feeling a certain way, it translates to the rest of the crew, and it's not healthy, because then the crew is going to say like you're really stressed about like trying to catch up to like say we're like an hour behind schedule or something. Like if I translate that stress to anybody, like first AC, like Genie, anybody, the whole crew is just going to be like on edge, and
It's a domino effect.
that's sort of the last thing that you need. Speaking of like being on edge or being like stressed and stuff, like do you watch like your mental health at all? Like I understand, because like if we're going like day in day out, like it's a lot. It's really taxing days, really long days. Like I'm wondering, like, do you ever do anything like just to check in on yourself, sort of thing? You know, is there anything that you try to incorporate in your process, whether it's work you've done at the rental house or being like a first AC, that sort of thing?
I feel like, I think for sure at the end of the day, I feel like I'm just like trying to count my blessings more.
Yeah.
Because I feel like being at the rental house or just being at rental houses for 3 years, it's there's so many moments too where it's just kind of like I'm sending out all this camera gear day in and day out,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still inside the shop. I'm not really working with any of this gear.
Sure.
So it can be kind of envious, like, oh man, I'll look at a package that I just pulled out. I'm like, oh, that's some kind of cool stuff. You know, like, there's a little nerd in me just kind of like, oh, this is sick. I wonder what the setup is.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, oh man, I'm not working it. Sometimes it's like, no, like, it's the job. We're working people. We're helping other people out too. Because like, there's times too where like I've worked with ACs all the time that come in and prep. Some people are meaner than others. Some people might have a bad day. So I feel like I'm gonna do my best to make sure that the prep is like the easiest. So like, so
Yeah.
that down the road they'll remember like, oh no, yeah, and like that kind of helps out. Like it's one of the things where like any energy you put out, I feel like you'll receive some back in. So like if I'm gonna take it negative, like I feel that's always gonna bite me in the ass later, kind of thing.
Sure.
And then yeah, it's just one of those like existential things where we're like, I'm never gonna leave the rental house. I'm never gonna leave the rental house. But it's like, no, I've made a good enough connections where I appreciate having a 9 to 5, because there is that steady income, and always like that fear of like, what if freelance doesn't work? At the very least, I have a job to rely on too.
That's true.
Which I am again grateful for.
Yeah.
But then going through these strikes, dude, it sucked.
Yeah.
To be completely honest with you, it was tough. It was like a ghost town. Not even for us, but for all the other shops too. Like nobody was sending anything out. It's like we're lucky. All right, cool. Someone's picking up a Canon lens.
Crazy.
But yeah, and then it just turns into a thing where my buddy, who I just got in the house and we shot a lot last year,
Yeah.
he ends up going on call, and I'm like, and it's like now I have somebody else that I'm worrying about too.
Yeah.
It's like I love this man to death, because he's just another homie that's kicking it with us. He's another Mexican dude too, like a second like camera guy that I met in this industry after like 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those guys that, you know, you want to hold on to, and you want to make sure they're good. And it's like there's times we're just talking on the phone. He's like, hey man, like, they didn't call me, and I was like, nah, like they will. Like like, dude, I'm like trying to work my best, like talking to these guys at the shop too, like, hey, like if you need us, let us know.
Yeah.
So again, it's just like sometimes it's easy to be in your head about like, oh, poor me.
Yeah.
And I feel like I gotta remember, well, poor me, but also blessed me, because you also have these blessings in life, and like it's not as easy for everybody else. And it's just like when you know other people that, dude, like had just no work for a year, like at least I was at a shop for a few months to kind of like be safe.
Yeah.
You just got to be grateful, because we saw a lot being at the shop. So when they put me on call back in like October,
Yeah.
it's one of those weird, I don't know, first generation things where it's kind of like, what am I supposed to do? I'm not working.
Yeah.
And like, I think ever since like after high school, I've just always worked, and to have constant work and then just to no work at all.
Yeah.
It was a little scary, to be honest. It's kind of like, oh, what am I supposed to do? But at the same time, I forget that, dude, I'll kill myself over work. Like, but in a good and a bad way, because I love like being first AC, or I love working with cameras.
Yeah.
Like, grateful for the job that I have, because I absolutely love it. But then to not have it, it's like, oh, like who am I kind of moment. Like, well, what
Yeah.
else is there out in life? And it's just kind of taking that time
Yeah.
for myself to just like kind of do other things and keep busy, because there's always other things to do to be busy.
Yeah.
Because then I found out too, it's like work can't be your whole life. Because what's that saying? It's like, what are people going to remember you by? They're not going to remember you by your wallet,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
You have to be happy in other forms of life, I feel like. Because that's the other thing too, I feel like recently, just like not being, I've definitely given myself more time to just kind of like relax,
Mm,
to give myself a break, which I've like grateful that I had that time. Even though like it sucks that it doesn't work, I'm grateful that it kind of happened. It's like we got to find those blessings in disguise too. It's like, well, I have time for myself now. It's like, what else do I really want to do, kind of
yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
kind of check in also, especially too, just check in with everybody else that you've met up with too, like this past year. Keep that networking.
Yeah.
I feel like networking is one of those things where I kind of suck at, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like a more quiet kind of guy. I'm like a really low key kind of dude, the way that I carry myself, especially on set, kind of just
Yeah.
maybe just being in camera department.
Maybe.
But kind of like, we've seen both sides of like, oh, being on features back to back to back to back,
Yeah.
killing yourself.
Yeah.
Or like, I like the kind of low key jobs too, like, hey, sometimes it's a little more guerrilla, sometimes, and then we're running and gunning, and it's just like, it it makes you, or at least for me, it made me like re-fall in love with this career path,
Yeah.
because I feel like within this last year, it's like, dude, like so many people, our generation coming up, like, so I feel like there's more peers in this industry now.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, dude, there's like so many Latinos coming up too, which is like,
Yeah.
and it's like you don't really realize it until like you're the fourth year in, and you're like, damn, I don't really see anybody else like in my position anymore, or
Yeah.
like at all,
Yeah.
since like college. And it's just like, it makes you feel a certain way after a while, and it's like it's easy to be bitter. But I feel like within this last year of like the people that I met, it's really given me like a renaissance of a career kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's again like those blessings in the sky. Sometimes it's like we're on this path for so long and it can be kind of hard, but it's like there's still more to it. We forget about where we came from, and it's just like your time will always come, because everybody's always in a different like path, and it's easy to compare, and it's one of those things where it's like you shouldn't be doing that, because there's other aspects to still be happy about.
Yeah. Like some flowers bloom much faster than others.
Mm.
And it's like that was just the time of that flower. You happen to bloom maybe a little bit later, a little bit after. Like, that's okay. And you bring up a good point about, like, practicing, like, gratitude. Because I feel like, like, definitely, like, as work was, like, slower, I got in my head a little bit about,
Mm.
like, damn, like, am I, like, worth this sort of career? But then it's also, like, a blessing in disguise. I sort of, like, in the periods of, like, not a lot of work, I got to figure out a lot of internal stuff, and I really got to figure out like things that I enjoyed more
Right.
than like I was initially doing, or like maybe even like my cinematography I think has changed almost like entirely,
Within like this past kind of like slow period,
kind of, because
you see the world a little different,
it
right?
kind of in two ways, both like in the process of it,
Mm-hmm.
like in the process of like making the thing, that's changed a lot, and also like kind of the type of cinematography I do now, because I think before I was very like less likely to take a risk, because I knew like, okay, this source does this thing and I'm going to light it the same way this way and that works, right? But now I think in the off time, like I've been able to like experiment a little bit more, and I've been able to kind of understand like, okay, why does this do this? And I've just been doing like a lot of like personal like internal work, like I've been going to therapy for God knows how fucking long. um that's been a whole other conversation where it's like work
Right.
was such a big, like what you're saying, like work shouldn't be such a big part of your identity, but it was. And so like going into this last year, I was like, what am I?
Yeah. No, honestly, like I definitely feel like I asked that question a lot too. It's
Yeah.
like even in the film industry, it's like I've been acing for 5 years, but I know that I still want more out of it. Like
Yeah.
I've directed twice.
Yeah.
It's a long story, but the first one never saw the light of day. The second one, I was really proud of it. But it's
Yeah.
just one of those things where it's like, I think I've overstressed the workload on myself of like other things that like, yeah, I'm so grateful for this job, but like there's still like that other side of happiness of like, when I've directed, it's like no, this is what truly like actually like been the happiest that I've been on set kind of thing.
Is it that the film that's linked in your
On my Instagram,
Instagram?
yeah, it's that one.
Do you want to talk about that? Was that like a film that you did in college, or was that
Yeah,
something recently
so that was the thing that I directed and produced it
in college?
in college. This was
Okay.
2020. So
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
was peak COVID.
Peak
This
COVID.
was peak COVID, dude.
Perfect timing.
Dude, this was insane. It's one of those things where it's like, screw it. I quit my day job. I'm just go all in on this project,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I can look back at it and say, hey man, at least I had something to look at. And it's like it's one of those things too. It's like as a creative, I think, and or like any artistry kind of thing. It's like you're always gonna be your worst critique, and it's
Yeah.
like
Oh, that's me. Yeah.
yeah, dude, right? And it's just
Yeah.
like I remember I think I sat with it for about a year. It wasn't until like a year later that I met up with my buddy who shot it on the homie Sertage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, let's just watch it. It's like sit down and watch it, dude. That was yeah, right. Why would why would you do that to
Why would
yourself?
you do that to yourself?
No, but it
Yeah.
was cool because it was one of those things. So I look back and remember, like, yeah, like we were younger then. We saw things a little differently. But now we still have this cool thing to show, and yeah, it's like looking back at it, it's been what, like 4 years since I've last directed, and it's like it's one of those like I think excuse me, it's one of those like I don't know, transition periods. Like I'm not working right now. I gotta find
Interesting.
my own things that makes me happy. So
Yeah.
one of the things too, just like mental health wise, I've been writing a lot. But it's more like self reflecting, kind of journaling. Because one of the things I really wanted to do was to write more. Is I was reading this book talking about just like different techniques to write.
Yeah.
One of the things to do was like a word vomit thing, or just like a you just write straight for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of connect some dots after, like, okay, well, how do I get to this dot to this dot? And then I kind of, analyze it. And a lot of it too, like just going through this like identity crisis of like, well, I'm not working. Like, who the hell am I?
Yeah.
A lot of things just kind of came up that I didn't like realize that were real issues like personally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like these things kept kind of coming up and just kind of analyzing it more. And then after a while, it's like it's good, but then after a while, it's like, well, I'm like still like talking about the same things over and over again, like let me take a break. And it's not until like I actually live life for a little bit and instead of analyzing it that
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, wait, you know what, it's good to step back. And then when I come back, I'm like, oh no, like things aren't as bad as I thought. Things still grow and change. That's part of life. You have to keep growing and changing,
Yeah. Yeah.
because if
Yeah.
you're like in your head too, you're just never gonna go anywhere. You're just gonna be trapped. And it's like you just have to keep living kind of thing.
Talking about numbers, like it's easy to look at like the money coming in, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
being like, oh, it's not where I want it to be, or oh, I'm not. When you quantify your career as like numbers,
Okay.
that's like terrible, because purely you're just seeing it as like, okay, how many jobs am I getting in a month? How many days am I getting at the rental house? How many hours, like sort of thing. Like when you're quantifying it to that, you're not seeing the full picture of like, okay, what did I do in that month? Because in that month, that could have been like like what you're saying about like journaling. Like it could be that whole month was just like figuring something out. You don't know what it is. You don't know what you're figuring out, but you're working on something.
Yeah, at the very least, you're working on yourself, kind of thing. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, even though it's not actual work, there's still other things to do. Like, even for example, like,
It's a different kind of work.
oh, dude, it's
Yeah.
it's work nevertheless.
It's work nevertheless. Yeah, it's work nevertheless. Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
even then too, just kind of like having more time. Just kind of finding hobbies. Like the biggest thing for me I mean, last year too, I was pretty good, but this year I'm trying to be more consistent at just working out.
Yeah.
I feel like working out, it's always been good. I used to play sports like as a kid, played baseball,
Yeah.
played football, played baseball
Mhm.
again in high school. So I've always been kind of active. Even like my buddies who live like down the street from me, we'll just play pickup basketball.
Yeah.
So I was playing basketball yesterday at the park.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is like, it's just like, I want to move, and it's like I don't have that motivation like all the time. But it's like when I'm like playing baseball, like, oh dude, it's just like I'm just like diving and running for the ball like a kid again. It's like the
Yeah.
little moments.
Especially not like if you get the chance to like step away and not think about work, then it's like, okay, you can come back a little bit more like refreshed.
Yeah, I think
You
so.
know what I mean? Like instead of being so fixated on like, why isn't this idea working? Da 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 da. Like, why can I not figure out this logistics situation for pre-production? But if you just like step away, like I've even done it before where I've been on like pre-pro for certain jobs, and like I'll be on like calls all day with like the gaffer or like the producer or whomever, like the director, talking about the creative and stuff. And I'm just like maybe halfway through the day, I'm like, I gotta eat something.
Oh, dude, that's the
Like
worst.
I gotta refresh. I gotta think.
Come on,
I can't
homie.
think right now.
You have to eat that. Low key though, that like one thing. Directing, same thing. I
Yeah,
would just work like nonstop on my computer because but I mean, there's good and bad because I feel like you actually have that passion to do it,
yeah.
but at the same time, that passion kind of
It took away my lunch.
it took away it took away your lunch. Yeah, dude, it's killing yourself, dude.
Yeah,
There's nights
yeah,
you're at the screen, my eyes start hurting. I haven't eaten. I got a headache. It's like no,
yeah.
your body is physically telling you like you need a
You
break.
need a break.
Especially as we get older, dude. Like, dude,
Yeah.
ACing, I forget too. I'm like, sometimes this is a young man's game.
My knees,
Let me
man.
guess, it starts at the knees. That's what I've been saying, bro. That's why I've been working out, man. I haven't worked out my legs in so long. This last feature that I
Yeah,
did, the action movie, we're
yeah,
rolling two carts up this hill, like in the middle of nowhere, like on dirt road. I think like the second day, dude, my knees started like, dude, and I had like 4 more days after that,
yeah,
and it's just like, oh, like my body's telling me like I need to relax, I need to calm down.
yeah. I think that's partially why I don't like to do like stuff on shoulder rigs because
Mm.
like all the weight on my shoulder, like I think I don't know. There's some issue with
There's
it
some issue with
now.
your shoulders.
Yeah, so like I think
Yeah, man, dude, your body's telling you something.
I ended up transitioning to like easy rig stuff. And
Mm.
here's the thing, like you see
What's
me.
your take? What's your take? You're a DP. I want to hear this conversation.
Take on what?
So, easy rig, handheld. What's it called? Like when is it called for, kind of thing, or how you make those decisions?
When it makes sense. I mean, like I feel like it's a discussion with the director, obviously.
Right.
But it's sort of like it like it's in part like an ergonomics thing, and it's also in part like um if it makes sense. Like if there's like a scene of somebody like going down the street and they're like drunk as hell. I'm not gonna put that on a steady cam.
Right.
I'm just
Right.
not. Right? I think handheld would fit a little bit better. Or like being a little bit more loosey goosey with like the easy rig
Or even like you
could
want to
be the
go
answer.
a layer deeper, like you can also help like mess with like shutter angle too.
That too, yeah.
That's
Like
one of those things that I learned on this action movie. It's like or like I guess I relearned. Like you learn so many technical things. It's hard to like remember all of them.
yeah.
But I forgot we're doing action. Like they're changing the frame rate, and like they're running through like a field of like bullet shots kind of going through, like they have a bunch of like special effects guys
Yeah,
going through it,
yeah, yeah.
and they're just like carrying it like by their knee, by their ankle, and they're just like running with it. And in my mind I'm like, it seems kind of weird, but then I was like, no, it's an action movie, so it works. And it's like those, like, again, like when it makes sense, I'm
They
like,
gotta have like crazy forearms to do
oh,
that.
dude, these guys were like, hell yeah, dude. These guys were like, they aren't that much
Yeah.
older than me, but like you can tell, like these
They're
guys had
huge.
these had years. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just built, they're just
They just
jacked.
built like a truck.
I know,
Yeah,
man.
it's insane. But
See, we gotta get buffed to keep up with these guys, man.
oh, I know. I've been slacking. I just run. I do like a couple like
Running's great, dude.
2-3 mile runs in the morning, and
Damn, really?
that's kind of it. Yeah, I mean,
Dude,
yeah.
that's like a whole thing, though, dude. I'm gonna be honest. I hate running. I hate running. I'll do everything else except for running.
Cause the reason is like it's a stamina thing. Like you have the easy rig, it takes the weight off. Like going back to like the easy rig thing, it's like it's to take the weight off,
Hmm.
and like I'm not the tallest individual, so like naturally the camera's gonna be like
Lower than your
a
talent,
little bit
or
above me. Like if talent's a
oh,
little bit taller,
yeah,
I try to avoid operating at like the hip level because it's not like ideal all the time, so I kind of operate like at my head height or like taller. It also like yeah, it depends on like where talent is at and
right.
and that sort of thing. But the main reason I sort of run is just like it's like a mental thing. Like I can't explain it, but like just like makes sense after a run.
Oh,
Like I get a chance to like clear my
clear your
head and
head.
like
That's like connect and stuff like that.
yeah, like it makes sense. Like there's something I'm not seeing like in the moment, trying to figure out all this like pre-production stuff, and then like I just go for a run, and then like all right, let me off. Let me like turn on my phone. Let me go for another run or
Yeah,
something. And then I don't know. I can't explain it, but it just like connects. Like it's kind of a forced. You're forcing yourself to be present and not think about certain things that don't really matter.
yeah.
You're
I feel
getting in your
like
head
that.
about certain stuff. Yeah.
I might be butchering this, but I feel there's like a Kobe quote there where it's like the like real strength is when you can physically tell your body to do something else, but your mind can still think about something else. So it's one of those things, like
Mm,
even as you run,
yeah.
even though you're doing a physical activity, your
Yeah.
mind is like making those dots that you have been thinking about. That's
Yeah.
the other thing like about writing too. Like when I write at like, so what I usually do is I'll write at night. So it might be like just like how my day went or things that I want to do,
Hmm.
and like looking back, like what do I want to do this, or like a to do list just for things that I need to do, just I gotta get done for tomorrow.
Yeah.
and then it's like the next day, like, because I sleep on that, when I wake up, like, I'm ready to go. Like, I
Yeah.
literally have no other like new thoughts except for the thoughts the night before,
Yeah.
and just wake up and do them.
Interesting.
So that's been like, that one like has been actually like a really really sick thing that I've like discovered in this, like, I guess, writing process, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Kind of makes you, I don't know, just makes me like actually be more serious, or just kind of like get things that I need to be done just done.
You have like an intense level of like mental clarity in the morning.
Yeah, yeah. There's no like just like being in bed. It's kind of like, no, I already have things in my head that I need to do that day, and I wake up and do it. That's the other thing too. We just gotta keep busy. I feel like when you
Yeah.
have, if I think I'm more of a, what's it called?
Workaholic.
Oh, definitely. So not definitely too. I freaking
Oh
love.
yeah.
I love working, bro. I could, just miss it thinking about it right now. I want to work one day in the week yesterday, and now I'm not
Yeah.
working.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. So it's like, if you don't give yourself like a task to do, then it's just kind of like, well, now I'm just left in my thoughts, and it's just like,
Yeah. I think. I
then you
think
get
like.
bored and you don't do anything. And
Yeah. I think having at least like a basic routine is like instrument. At
yeah,
least in the morning, because like my morning is not like that intense level of like clarity. Like I'm wake up like kind of jaded, and then I'll go to I'll go get like coffee or something, and then
that's
I'll
good.
like go for a run, and then the rest of my day pretty much.
Like, being outside is great. Like,
Yeah.
for me too, like, again, like you said, just figuring out routines, since I'm used to just working 9 to 5 like for so long. So things, well, I have time now. Like, what else is there to do? It's like I'm just like looking around the house.
Yeah.
So like one of the things, like, I'll work out for sure. I got a dog, and he always wants to go outside. So before I just like kind of open the door, let him out, do his thing. He'll come back inside.
Yeah.
And now I'll go outside with him. I'll just like sit in the sun, get that internal clock going. So like if you're in the sun, I feel like really good just being in the sun, just kind of sitting there for a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
get warm, get the blood pumping.
Yeah.
Then I can kind of go again.
Yeah.
And then just like another thing that I like doing is I've been into gardening.
Interesting.
Yeah, cause like, I mean, there's a bunch of like trees on my grandma's house that like my grandpa planted.
Yeah.
I never met the man, but my grandma and my dad would always be like, yeah, your grandpa planted these for his grandkids. And it's like, now
Ah.
that I'm older and I live at my grandma's house now, it's just like, well, I can't take any of these things for granted. Just looking at these blessings that I have, it's like my grandma's getting older. She can't really do all
Yeah.
those physical things anymore. And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
growing up as
Yeah.
a kid too, we would just kind of like just help my grandma garden. It's like we fill up that green bucket of trash can, because we're little kids. We'll just like jump into the trash can, like squish it down, make sure more fits in there. So it's like one of those things where, again, like I might be doing like a physical thing of like just being like squatted down, like
Yeah.
getting all the weeds out and stuff like that. But like things will just kind of connect, and it feels kind of like I don't know, it feels spiritual. Also, it's one of those things where it's like, well, this is like something my grandpa did, my grandma
Yeah.
does, my used to do, and my
Yeah.
dad would do. It's like it's one of those weird like spiritual things of like, no, we gotta keep these, like, I guess, traditions going in a weird way.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's been really like helpful too. And again, it's like sometimes just outside we'll just play music, play a bunch of cumbias, or just like listen to radio.
It's healthy to kind of create that space, like kind of away from like work stuff, because then you come at it like that much better,
Yeah,
that
it's
much
just,
sharper, that much like more present in a way.
yeah.
You know, like it's like not like a meditation, but like the opportunity to kind of like
It's those mental breaks.
yeah,
Because even though like there's, again, just like work, at least especially in the industry that we're in, there is that physical part,
yeah,
but there's 100% like that mental part.
yeah,
So it's just that fine balance of between the two of them, I think.
yeah, and it's the physical thing is something I'm still figuring out, but I think the mental bit, like I've gotten to understand a little bit more. Like I've learned a little bit more about like meditation, and I've learned a little bit more about like proper exercise and like getting into that sort of consistency, and like the ability even to have like a consistent routine is like great. Like I mean, that my routine in the morning is just like wake up, coffee, run, and then whatever I need to do during the day. But like if I'm on set, it's like, yeah, that goes out the window kind of.
No, dude, for real. It's one of those things where even like my workout routine is like, I'll be as consistent as possible as I can. But like the minute I work, it's like, nah, we're not working out, dude. Like the working outside is the physicalness of it already. Even there's like days too, like you know how it is.
Yeah.
I think the first job that I got this year was Jesus, it was 16 hours.
Oh,
The
wow.
first job, and luckily enough, again counting blessings,
Yeah.
I am fortunate enough to say that was my longest day on set
Oh wow.
in my career. And I know there might be people who will listen and get this piece of, he's never worked a day in his life. Because I was talking to the person that got me on this job. I was second ACing.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What do you mean you've never worked 16 hours?" I'm like, "I've never worked 16 hours on set." She
Yeah.
just like gave me this look of like, "I hate you,"
I think I
just a
think
little bit, but
I think my longest was like 17,
oh my god,
18 hours, something like
oh
that.
my
I've
god.
never done like anything longer than that. I
Dude,
think
yeah, and it's like after those days, it's like, what are you gonna do the next day? Like, unless it's like you have to go back on set again, like I understand, but like,
sleep.
dude, yeah, dude, just catch up on sleep. Your body's telling you now we need to restart. We
At
need
least
to.
that's what I did. Like I just caught up on sleep because it was like I guess
Well, what was the hour like?
it was so I was working on I was DPing like an indie feature like a few
Mm.
years ago, and it was, I guess the studio that we were at was on like a Monday through Friday like schedule.
Oh,
So they weren't open on the weekends for
oh,
some reason. And we were there like during the week pretty consistently cuz like the bulk of the production kind of took place like in one studio
yeah.
stage kind of environment. And it was like the last day of the week. It was like we were trying to crank out the last like few setups, a few scenes, and you know when you're doing like a feature, it's just like you're at a point where you're just like
It's very much
collect,
repetition.
like you're just collecting shots like fucking Pokemon, and
Yeah.
like you have to go at it with the same consistency every time. So by that point, I already had like kind of a lighting workflow that was like pretty easy to kind of go in and pick up shots, especially like if we're already
You're on a
kind of,
stage also. It's
yeah,
a
if
little
we're
easier.
shooting across from people. I think like the for context, like there was maybe like 5 6 people in this scene,
Uh-huh.
so like we were shooting across from people trying to get every single like bit of dialogue, you know, and we're at a point where it's like, okay, we're checking off, like, did we miss this thing? Did we miss this thing? We got to make sure we get this shot for this thing, and then this, da 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 da, and just like that seventh inning stretch kind of thing where it was like, it's just this
Like we've
last
been doing
bit.
it for a while. Like let's make sure
Yeah,
we
yeah,
covered our
yeah, yeah.
grounds.
And we
Yeah.
weren't going to be back in that studio, like, for the rest of the production.
Oh.
So we were just like double, triple checking. We even, I think there was one point where like the first AD went back to the dailies like to check something. And so we were just making sure like we were trying to, and because it was like a studio, so like we didn't have to worry about like where the sun was.
Right.
You know
Oh,
what I mean?
like or like continuity wise
Yeah, or
in
like
that way.
continuity in that way. So
Okay.
we were able to just like jam them out, da 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 da. And then like the next day, I think I like just like slept in until like 3 p.m. or something. Like I just like needed the reset, and like production, I think needed to get a piece of gear from me, and like I was up in the morning and I like gave it to them because like I got back like pretty late, so I got up in the morning and I like, gave it to
Dude,
them. But then it just like
just back in your bed.
hit that pillow hard.
Dude, your bed be looking real nice after a shoot
Oh
sometimes.
yeah, your bed looks
No,
real.
no one will give you a better hug after set than your bed.
No, the bed. I love my bed. I take care of my bed. That's like talking about mental health. That's like the big thing that I make sure that like I have a nice
Yeah. Oh,
mattress.
dude, one of the things that I saw also is like I guess like a military training thing is like
Yeah,
everybody always they make your bed like
yeah,
when you get up.
yeah.
So that's what I always do in the morning. And it might maybe I'm a slob. I don't know.
Sure.
But I started just like at the minute you wake up, just make your bed. The minute you
Interesting.
wake up, because it's one of those things like, oh well, you got one task done. Now what's the next one, kind of thing.
Oh,
It
like
kind of
it
keeps you
puts you
going.
into like this
It's a work
momentum.
mode, dude. In work mode, that's what it is. I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's step away from this conversation for a quick second and talk about ShareGrid. ShareGrid is a community platform that allows filmmakers to rent their gear from people within the city you're in, whether it's LA, New York, Atlanta, Chicago. ShareGrid helps connect you with local filmmakers to rent their gear. You can get $20 off your first rental with them by either signing up with the link in the show notes or using my referral code AGarcia20. All right, back to the conversation. I hate to interrupt, back to the conversation.
Dude, it's crazy. This last day at work, it was like a reality TV show
Yeah.
thing. That was the other thing. I think that what was the other year that they struck? It was like 2008 or something like that.
7.
2007. So I
Yeah.
guess that was like the year that reality TV like really took off.
Yeah.
And I had a reality TV show last year. It was my first travel job.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. They're talking about the strikes. It was during these strikes actually. Yeah, last year
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I
yeah.
was fortunate to get on a reality TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about like the formula. And it's like, well, we're not really part of that union, so we don't really get affected. And it's just like now that we're in this thing again is like the industry in itself is also changing in the content that's getting created right now.
Yeah.
And like I talked to like the other guy from the other shop,
Yeah. Yeah.
the boss. He was just kind of like, it's like, yeah, it's an interesting time. People just have to adapt to change, and not everybody will adapt to that change. That's just, I think, part of life, part of what is that, nature, natural selection kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
like it's one of those things that we put among ourselves to, well, if we don't change this, we have to change to something else, or like we got to keep each other safe. Like I'm going like this renaissance of career. Like I think especially like within the Latino community, there's a lot of people that are just kind of coming up, and like to finally see those stories being told, it really warms my heart, at least, to see people that speak our language, people that are telling these stories that, oh, I connected with it so much in a way that I haven't in any other movie.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, time is now. It's interesting to see these changes.
Yeah. And at least like for me, seeing you work, it's always been a really like cool thing because I've never worked with any like um Hispanic Latino like camera assistant
Really,
like ever.
dude,
I don't think so. Now that I'm thinking about it, like maybe there was one or two, but
it's not a lot of us.
not a lot of us. Yeah, there's not a lot of us. So I'm definitely like so. How do I say this? Like, it's always exciting to see for sure, and I
Yeah,
think I hold everybody close.
yeah, dude. It's one of those things too, where it's like being in this industry for as long as I have. Like, it's one of those things where did a music video with Salvador,
Yeah,
and shout out to the homie Salvador.
Salvador,
I love that guy.
the homie.
I think like right after that job, I had this other thing lined up, and the little things were kind of like a slow time, and I think like I just got put in on call,
Yeah,
so I started reaching out to my contacts. I was like, hey man, like if you got any work coming up, like let me know. I kind of have all the time in the world, so
yeah, yeah, yeah,
please give me work.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And one of my buddies, funny enough, I met him at the first rental house that I was at,
Ah,
and
okay.
he was the very first other Mexican guy that I met,
That's
and he
crazy.
was my age, and he was working on an order for this production company that's always with us that house gear.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always like a lot of high pressure kind of preps with this guy.
Yeah.
So to see a guy my age that come in, I got super excited, and he like left to go do another prep, and he's like texting me because we exchanged info. He's like, "Hey, did I like pack this? Like, hey, like I just sent him the pictures of like my prep. Like he wants to do something. Like, can you help me?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, dude, I got you, I got you."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then literally, I think the first like month or two that I'm at the second shop that I'm at, the same guy comes into prep, and I hadn't seen him since the other rental house, and he saw me. He's like, "Jonathan." I was like,
I'm here
"Eduardo."
now.
He's like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "What happened to another house? Did it not work out?" I was like, "Nah, it didn't work out, but I'm here now." He's like, "Oh, dude, sick, sick." And I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, that prep was in charge of another prep tech,
Yeah.
but because he saw me, there was that level of comfort that he
Oh, I'm gonna go
felt.
back to you.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, like let me bother you, like, hey dude, like I'm sorry I'm bothering you, can I get, oh no, you're good dog, you're good dog. He's like, I'm trying to do this, and it's like because we're both first ACs,
Yeah.
and the other guys at the shop at the time, they weren't, I guess, as friendly, I guess maybe as I was, or just because we knew each other, it was a
Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
different. um it's like I helped out that guy, and then I think we played like pool one other time, so I reached out to him, and he's like, oh dude, I don't have anything paid, but you want to work on this like passion project that we got going on or whatever. And I was like, you know what, like I was always kind of in my head like, I don't want to like do these anymore, like I need the money, but at the same time it's like, no, this is a good homie, like I genuinely like care for this dude, and like I want to see this man succeed kind of thing. And he said he's DPing.
Community's huge.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things where like I didn't know any of this until I started working with them,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh yeah, like I actually started off lighting, and I was like, oh really? He's like, yeah, I like did like a lot of gaffing, I did key grip, and then I did camera last.
Yeah.
So in my mind, it's like, oh, he's just AC and going to DP. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
the fact that he has this crazy background of working on set in every position. It's like to see this man work like to a scale that I hadn't been on in a while, and to see him in charge in this position was like super freaking sick, dude. And also he had like another homie too, that another Mexican guy that we have worked with in the past, and like to see
Yeah.
him come on also, and she's like, no, we're holding each other up. And it's just like one of those things where like, because I saw this guy come on set, I was like, oh no, we're not fucking around, like we need to get these shots done. We're like, and it kind of put me back into this, like, again, just like really loving the job, and like, no, when everybody on the job cares, it's a different mentality, and everybody wants to push and like get these shots done and move efficiently. Like, oh dude, it's great. And it's like one of those things where when they were like at a skate park in Inglewood, And of course, whenever there's a Mexican DP, you gotta put that Mexican flag on the patch, dude.
Always,
Dude, it
always.
is just like one of those things where I was like, yeah, like we're here, we're doing this right now, and then it's one of those things like we're on lunch, and I'm the AC, so I'm just chilling by the camera car. I'm just eating my lunch alone. I'm just kind of hanging out. I'm just like, no one look at my camera.
Nice.
and and this guy, this younger guy comes up to me like in an orange vest, and
Yeah.
he's like a PA or something,
Yeah.
and he's just like, oh yo, what's up, man? How's it going? And I was like, oh, doing good. Just have some lunch, Like, oh man, that's like so sick. I've never seen like a Mexican in charge of like the camera and stuff like that. And in my head, I'm just like, holy. I'm like to have like that kind of moment of like for me to be in a position that another person has never seen before,
Yeah.
to feel kind of related. And he's like looking at like the camera cart, like I got everything like kind of like nice and neat, and he's looking at the camera and he's like, I've never seen like the Mexican flag before, like on a camera like that.
Yeah.
And it's one of those surreal moments where I'm like, holy like it's nice to like to I don't know, it's cool. It's like, first of all, damn, I'm getting old. That's the first thought that comes in my head. I'm like, I've been doing this for a while. But the second thought is like, no, that's cool to just be that person for somebody else that maybe I didn't have coming up.
I definitely didn't have that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so to be that person for somebody else, and I guess to kind of like inspire, I'm like, no, like we're here in this industry, like there's so much more
Yeah.
of us to go around, or like left to like kind of be pushed into this, dude. It's sick.
Yeah. That's what, like, I've been asked before, like, who kind of like inspires you?
I'm sorry.
And there's kind of there's always like the people that, like, it goes without saying, like Roger Deakins, like,
Mm.
those types of people. But more often than not, it's always like the homies,
Yeah.
because it's like it's mutual struggle. We all understand, like, we're all in it together. We all are of a similar like background, especially you and like Salvador. Like, more often than not, I'm gonna like hook it up for you guys. Like, you saw me. I just rented like some ear techs to you. Like, that wasn't even with me. Like, Streety had them, and I like called them up. I was like, hey homie, I need I need my ear techs.
Yeah,
Like,
that's funny. Just like going back to even like how we met. Well, we met at the rental house, right?
we met at the rental house. I think they were having like some
I
event.
think like a cook event.
It was Cook, I think. Or no, there was another one
It was
before that,
Ice.
but I don't think we spoke at that one. I
Did we
think
speak at
it
the second one, or
I
did we
think it
meet
I
on?
think it like I think it was the Cook one.
Yeah,
I think it was the
yeah.
Cook one.
Because I think Sal had to like do a run or something. He's like, oh, I'll meet up with my friend Alex. Like, he's the homie, but I just think
Yeah.
we just kind of missed each other in that first one. But the second one, the three of us there, because we took that picture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
remember that
yeah,
picture?
yeah, yeah. There was a few. There was one in front. That was the Cook event,
Yeah.
but that was after the job. The Sabrina
The Sabrina
job,
music video.
the Sabrina music video.
Was
Yeah,
that
yeah,
after,
yeah.
or was that before?
I think that was before.
That was before, because I think when I saw you, I was like, oh, because
Yeah, I think
that
yeah,
was
that was before. That's right. Yeah, that was before.
so that's like the funniest like interaction I feel like that I had with someone of a connection of like a friend, because that's the other thing I love about Salvador. I feel like he generally just cares about like the people that he wants to work with.
Yeah,
He's just like a friendly dude, and it's just like I feel like he generally cares of like, nah, like just like I'll hang out. He's always like, yeah, we're just hanging out with the homies.
yeah,
And it's one of those things where it's like, again, just kind of like meeting younger guys now, where it's like sometimes I carry myself really really seriously, because that's just kind of how I train. But like seeing like my generation come up, and like just like sometimes it's not that serious. Sometimes it's like we can have a few laughs, but like, yeah, we're working, but like sometimes we can have some laughs and like just generally have a good time. And like one of those things where it's like we're just shooting in a neighborhood, and you just pop up out of nowhere as I'm like in work mode. I'm like unloading the car. I'm like, oh, we're like, I gotta do this, I gotta do that.
yeah.
And you just like pop up behind me. I was like, hey, yo, what you doing? He's like, you need some help? And you just like jumped in. And I was just like, dude, you're not like, we're not working together. I feel bad asking for help. Like, no, it's fine, it's fine. And you're just kind of like, just there kind of kicking at us for a little bit.
A lot of my gear was on that job.
Was it? Oh, that.
Like, my monitor was on that job. My ear techs were on that
Oh, that's
job.
right.
My Teradek, I think, was on that job. There was a lot of like camera stuff that was on that job.
What
I
were you
think-
up to? Were you just like in the neighborhood, or?
No, I wasn't. I was like, I took a general meeting with like a director in Hollywood.
Oh, so you're already kind of in the area.
And Salvador had like texted me like, hey, we're going to be in this area. Like, if you're done to pull up. And I had an air tag in the Teradek case.
You knew exactly.
So I knew exactly where you guys were. So I just went around the corner. I'm like, I'm going to pop up. I'm going to see these guys. And I think who saw me first. I don't think it was you,
I
but
think it was probably Streety.
I think Salvador or like Streety saw me first. And like, oh, what the fuck? Like, I was like, yeah, I'm just popping in, just saying what's up, you know.
Well, it's funny too. That same day, I think, or like the day after or before, I can't remember. Um, we saw Andres like just like pull up or not pull up. He just like drove past us. He's like, "Is that you, fools?" And we're like, "Hey, dude, that job was fun." Because I'm just like, I
Yeah,
just met him too on the previous job,
yeah,
and in my mind, I'm like, no, this guy like generally just like he just wants to shoot with the homies. He cares about like the people he's gonna come up with, and for you to pull up also, it's just kind of like. I don't know, solidify that too. Cause then dude, you're a champ. You freaking stayed till like we wrapped that day.
yeah,
And I remember I think it was like me and Salvador were just like wrapping up.
yeah,
Um, had him, rep Modelo as we usually do.
yeah, yeah,
And so I'm taking it easy. I'm like, okay, we're gonna have a break, but Sal just want to get out of there, so he's like packing up the van. And then we and you were just kind of like staring. And it was back in my mind too. I didn't want to say anything because I was just like,
yeah,
I'm tired. But then you're just like, no, we gotta repack this. We gotta repack all this. Like the Mexican in me cannot let you do this. And I was like, no, I like this. I like this. I like this. I was like,
no,
no, yeah,
man.
let's help out the boy. Let's help out the boy. Like, no, we gotta make sure we're doing this shit right, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
we gotta look out for each other. And like, I wasn't doing anything that day. The only thing I did was like I took a meeting and I saw you guys were close, and I was like, oh, you know what, I'll pull up. Like, let me support. Because at that time I was also still like just kind of meeting you guys, you and Salvador, and like Streety was also on that job, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll pull up.
Yeah,
Like,
some people
you know, it's
on
okay.
there.
And it's cool. Like you mentioned, like the camaraderie. Like it's cool to be able to like be able to like almost like a light switch, just like being able to flip from like or just shooting the shit with the homie, and then just like, all right,
Oh,
we're
we're in work mode.
laser
Yeah.
focused. Like I think you value that, because I think it makes the work that much better, and you're equally as like excited to pull up to like to set. I wasn't even working and I pulled up, you know what I mean? Like I just like it is the love of like just the homies and like the culture, like, you know, like, hey, you know, y'all are Mexican. Like, we got to look out for each other. I'll make gear available for you guys. I'll try to get more work for you guys. You know, that sort of thing. You know, it's less about me and more of like what I can do for everybody else, sort
Yeah,
of
and it's
thing.
like for me, it's like I'm getting to a point too where it's like now people are asking me like, hey, like editor, do this and that. And I'm like
Yeah,
thinking in the back of my head like, oh, dude, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, which I kind of feel kind of for
yeah,
going back to networking and like really remembering everybody that I've met. And I'm just
yeah,
kind of like, no, actually, like looking back, I'm like, no, I do know people, and it's like, okay, definitely need to work on that for sure. Because at the
yeah,
end of the day,
definitely.
too, like you said, like I wanna be able to work. It's not gonna feel like work if you love what you're doing, and also if you're working with like a good amount of people, like with good people that are your friends, that are
Absolutely.
your homies, dude. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, that's the best. That's the dream. That's always gonna be the dream kind of thing.
What is like going back to work, I guess. You mentioned like that you had previously like directed, producing type work, that you've done that sort of thing.
Mm.
Is that something you are wanting to commit more time to? Do you want to like continue down like the camera department field? Like what is kind of the future of the type of work you're doing look like?
Mm, as of now, it's one of those things where, we mentioned the knees. It's
Yeah,
a young man's game working on set. I
for
feel
sure.
like so. The time being, as much camera work as I can get now, just kind of rack up the money is always gonna be great.
Mm-hmm.
Just also, especially even now, like the way I think about like the network of people that I have working, it's honestly been at a good point where it's a lot of people that I already know.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. And
Yeah.
also, I feel like just being a camera department, you meet a lot of different people. Where like when the day does come where I got something that I want to shoot, like I already have a lot of people that I can kind of call on and I feel like can rely on.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, yeah, I think this is the year of, I guess, figuring it out still. Like the industry itself is also kind of slow.
Yeah.
Working at a camera shop, that's a good resource of gear that we all need one day,
Definitely. Yeah.
especially the homies. You
Yeah,
know who
definitely.
you know who you are, who are listening. I got you, like always. Come
Yeah,
on.
definitely. Yeah.
But yeah, I think definitely I want to take the time this year to get more into that. It's one of those things where I think I have that avoidant tendency of of not getting on the stories that I want, or maybe sometimes some of these subject matters are very personal to me. And it's one of those things where, like, because I've been in this industry, I've seen every level of production where the minute you have a lot of people involved, it's kind of like the story doesn't really become your story anymore.
Mm.
So I feel like I want to be in a point in time where if I make these stories that I want to make it the way that I want to. And like maybe that might be a little counterproductive if I'm waiting all the time. But again, just kind of going in this conversation and reflecting back, I don't see a better time than now to kind of really go for it.
All right, that concludes today's conversation with Jonathan Chan. Uh, like I mentioned in the intro, I've only really gotten the chance to know him the past year or so, but from the jump, his company has always been one that I've come to really enjoy, and every conversation or shoot day we're on together is always a pleasure. Um, and hopefully that translates into this conversation. You know, I think it's cool to see what kind of philosophies people pick up on, whether it's from like mentors or just like other people around them. You know, it's interesting what sort of philosophies people carry with them, right? Because we're so into the work and kind of how to perfect the craft. We lose sight of certain philosophies and certain principles and disciplines that I think us as like film industry people or any artist for that matter um, should have. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed today's conversation, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.